What's going on, guys? Varuk here with some exciting news today. The 3.0 patch for World of Kings has just been announced officially. It is to be released 3 days from now on December 26th. That is, of course, the day after Christmas. So we're going to make our way through these notes to kind of inform you as to what you can expect for this new patch. I can't guarantee I'll be able to perfectly interpret a lot of this because, you know, historically it's been in kind of broken English, but we're just gonna do it. So today is Monday the 23rd. Again, it's being released on the 26th. So first things first, dear warrior, the world in flames of war. In order to protect the faith and partners, can gather comrades to raid the dungeon. What dungeon? Okay, so maintenance is going to be on the 26th. Here is the new content and function. So first, there's going to be a new race called the Furry, which is opened the character build. Basically, we get a new character called the Furry. It looks like a little raccoon. The max level is going to be increased to 80, which is a big plus. And there's going to be a new map, Timicidia. I think I said that right. It's going to be part of the new main story, and I'm just interpreting on the fly here. At the same time, there's going to be new maps, new books, new landscape exploration content, and corresponding achievements, of course. They're adding the 7th and final artifact, to my current knowledge, the Breka's Shadow Catastrophe. It's going to open something called Wild Exercise, where you get to win the reward by completing the related quests. I don't know, it just kind of sounds like another daily. I don't know. Okay, new class, Earthen Walker, whose class awakening are the Mountain King, Dune Stylight, and Airbender. So essentially that's going to be the monk class. Pretty exciting. The new Divine Wing system. This is going to be sick. Basically, your characters get to have these additional aesthetics. They give you more stats, of course, but they're going to be like these sick, divine-looking wings. And there have been other people who have looked at those in specific, but of course, I'll be covering it as it comes out on the 26th. A new Gear Atlas system, which can upgrade the stats of gear and triggers additional effects. So basically, it's like... in other games, the more you collect, the more base stats you get, even if you don't actually use those pieces of gear. So it's just a lot more to do. 2 new stats. So Wild Power. Stop it. Wild Power, Inspire Ferocity and increases the damage you deal. And then Wild Mitigation, with the power of nature, get shield and reduce the damage you take. So something to increase your defenses and increase your offenses. There's going to be a new event called the Hero's Returning Help event. So all players will receive bonus experience, Dragon Soul, and Overlord points when the Overlord dungeon boss is killed. So basically, if you're a returning player, it's going to be sort of a catch-up system. So if you are new to the game or returning to the game, it's going to be a great time to return. Secret Key event. Returning players can receive a magic secret key item in the returning hero page. So again, returning players will get more and more items. The new level 80 talent. I don't know what that means. Open all class transfer. Warrior can be transferred into wizard. This is amazing. So any class can now transfer to any other class. So if you've been previously locked out from, you know, let's say another class that you really wanted to play, now you can freely transfer, I'm assuming for a fee, to whatever class you want to be. So my friend Lego has been a marksman, super solid marksman for a long time, and he's always wondered, man, what if I went Frost Whisper? You know, what if I changed over to this class, and he could never do it, but now you can change and be literally whatever you want to be, which is a really good improvement. Release new Tainted Tier 2 set. I have no idea what I just read. Open more powerful level 80 legendary weapons. So I'm assuming, actually I've seen this in another YouTuber's video. Currently, we now have phase 6 weapons, and then it's going to start over again from phase 1 all the way up to phase 3, I believe is how it works. But you're going to have to turn in your phase 6 weapon to get the new upgraded weapon. So it's going to be another legendary weapon at tier 1, but it'll be an entirely different type of weapon, which will be upgraded, of course, which will be better than the current phase 6 that we have. Open the new chapter of Rune Riddles, Medal of Glory. So new Rune Riddles, a higher leveled enchantment system. So your enchants are going to go way up. A new series of gem, of course, new gems. Open new mercenary gameplay, so send the mercenary to challenge dungeon bosses. That's kind of cool. The mercenaries have been not really the most overly interesting thing in the game, so with that you'll have another thing to do, which will be kind of interesting. Golden Progression group event. Complete the new dungeon reward for rankings. Okay, looks like another daily. Open callback for rewards event. Get reward by calling back other players to return to the game. Oh goodness. I can already see all of the spam messages that are going to be going out. So yeah, if you guys are watching this and you're a returning player, of course I'm going to take advantage of this and say, if you leave a comment down below and you're returning to the game, I'll get codes for you and send them to you so we both can get some pretty good rewards. So if you're watching this video and you want to return, just comment and we'll get that figured out in due time. Open 2 new reputations. So 2 new reputations, going to be the Royal Expeditionary Force, Son of the Wild, and corresponding reputation shops. Probably how you're going to get the new Brickish Shadow Catastrophe artifact. Max level of Soul Bloodline is now 750. Good for additional stats. Multiple items are added into shops. Reward from treasure is updated as well. I heard that the treasure from doing your pet dailies, your pet go out and do expeditions, your pets go out, and then you get the treasure maps. I hear now you can get awesome items from the treasure, like the Black Dragon Essence to upgrade your legendary weapon. Open Call of the Wild event. Players can help to accumulate PvE counts by participating in dungeon events and getting wildflowers. Sounds okay. The entire server will receive rewards once the count reaches the target. Just like a global, effort system. Once everybody gets a certain amount of points, then everybody can claim the same prizes. Open a license system. Players can sign with Heroes license for free, get costumes, mounts, divine wings, and other gifts by completing the weekly goals. Okay. New items. Release level 70 elevation pouch. Release new supply packs. Release God's Gift growth fund. So basically, these are just new things that you can, of course, purchase to expedite your growth. Not really entirely necessary, but for the people who want it, you can get it. New dungeons. Okay. Open Soul Temple Adventure and Challenge Dungeons. So Soul Temple's the new one of the new dungeons. The recommended gear is 240, and the loot gear that it drops is 250 to 260. And then there's another one called Open City of Sai. In Challenge Dungeons, recommended gear is 250. And then Open Zodiacal Signs and Overlord Dungeons. So it's a new Overlord Dungeon, Zodiacal Signs. Completing the dungeons to win Zodiac Raw or Stone, which can be used to exchange for gem and titles. Okay. Each level of dungeons can give a Zodiacal buff with an exclusive affix. Okay. Optimizations and fixes. This is going to be kind of just raw details here. The book and scene from 2.0 can now be purchased. So any books and scenes can now be purchased to catch up. Optimize part of the reward mechanism in game. I don't know what that means. Rune Merge. So the luck rate will be accumulated when merging runes, and golden runes will came out when the luck rate is 100. So I'm assuming every time that you merge the normal runes together, you'll get an increased percentage to get a golden rune. So now, of course, it'll be, once you merge several together, you'll get your rate up to 100, and then the next one will be guaranteed gold. That's pretty good for a catch-up mechanic. Now we have Sigil Merge. So if the level 6 sigil doesn't show up, the rate of getting to level 6 will increase. Oh my goodness. Okay, so people, if you've been hoarding the sigils, good on you. If you haven't been, kind of disappointing. But I know some people who've been hoarding sigils, so now they'll be able to max out their level 6s. And it looks like they're not increasing it to level 7 yet, which is good, because still a lot of people don't have max level 6s at all. Artifact Reforged. Oh, yes. Okay, I'm happy to read this. Luck rate will be accumulated when reforging. Artifact traits will be level 2 in the next reforge if the rate is 100%. That's very good, but also kind of frustrating for people who have been spending all their artifact reforge rolls to no avail. Optimize the page of callback. I don't know what that means. Optimize the page of artifact reforge. Okay, it's optimize the page of items. It looks like they're changing minor details to improve on the display itself. So that's just quality of life improvements there. Might more easily display, enchantments and things like that. Add new old times main quest whose reward changed into soul experience. Okay. Add view function in friend application. Tap the icon to view the information. So again, more quality of life improvements. The dungeon raid will be closed, and its related reward can be gotten in other dungeons. So now you don't have to spam those raids 3 times per day, the LFG, so to speak, where you're just playing with a bunch of bots. You can get those rewards elsewhere, which is helpful. Saves time. The loot reward will be adjusted in part of dungeons from Revival of Black Dragon. Okay. The level of dummy will be promoted in combat simulation area. So when you go to do, test your numbers on the dummies, the level is going to be promoted. I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming that's good. Optimize the display of crowns when its amount is over 100 million, so probably just shorten it a little bit for those of you who are whaling. And you have a hard time reading your crown number. Okay. Add Black Dragon Abyss Gem and Wild Dark Gem Bag in Treasure Map reward. That's what we were reading earlier. So now, if you've been doing your pet expeditions and you have a bunch of treasure maps, hopefully you haven't been doing them, or at least, doing the high tier treasure maps, because now you can get Black Dragon Abyss Gems and Dark Gem Bags. The Gem Shard and Germ will be adjusted in part of rewards. Dallas's duplicates, I have no idea what I'm reading right now. Dallas's duplicates will not be viewed as bosses in Dragon Tomb, and boss affix will not be triggered. Again, no idea what I just read. Expand the number of quests in Aguasol's Treasure. Okay, and add luck rate and gear shuffle. So now the luck rate will be accumulated in each gear shuffle. Gear rate will become SS when the luck rate is 100. So for those of you who are still shuffling your gear attributes up to double SS, you're struggling to, now it'll be easier to do so. Add reset function of inscription. Yes, I really wanted this. The new inscription skills that go on your, you get the inscription scrolls and use it to get new attributes on your gear, or on your abilities rather. You couldn't reset it, and so if you invested into something that you later found out was terrible, you couldn't reset it and get all your scrolls back. So now you can, and you'll be able to move those things around and adjust them as needed. That's very good. Optimize the tab pages in the Emporium so costume and mount are merged into appearance, and pouches will be taken off in discount. I don't know if that means you can't get them for a discount anymore, or if they're just optimizing things. But time-limited items will be sold in supply tab page. The disorientation from Arnos Ruins changed to stunned. Okay, well that's good. It looks like you can break out then, or I have no idea. Maybe you can now use your military skill to break out of that now from Arnos Ruins. On the last boss, I think is what it's talking about. When you're moving and the Eye of Voids are opened, you can't really break out of it unless you have a teleportability. But okay, add Old World goal in Aguasol's Treasure and optimize part of goals in it. Fix the bug that the damage over time does not decay when the player's gear level is lower than monsters. Huh? Fix the bug that the damage over time does not decay. Okay. So now, if you are in an Overlord dungeon, your damage over time abilities, because this is how I made a video called like hacking Overlords, where even if your gear level was way lower than the Overlord requirement, you would be slanted. All of your raw damage attacks would be slanted, but your damage over time abilities would not be slanted. So classes like what was it, like Flame Singers, who had a lot of damage over time abilities, or Blade Masters, or if you had classes like Necromancers with high damage over time abilities, you could go into these Overlords and complete them just using your damage over time, because your damage over time was not slanted, but your raw attacks were. So now they fix it so you can't rush Overlord dungeons anymore, which I'm kind of happy about that, because people were pissed off that, if you didn't have access to the Necromancer tree or any of the other class trees, then you couldn't do the Overlords, and it was just kind of frustrating. So they fixed it so you can't push Overlords anymore. That's a good improvement. Now, the damage over time will no longer trigger the passive effect of triggered on hit, e.g. reflect damage from dungeon boss. I don't know what that means. The passive effect of trigger on dodge is no longer triggered. Gosh, this is just not my day. Hold on. Okay. The passive effect of trigger on dodge is no longer triggered when the attacker misses, and it will be triggered when the victim dodges. Again, no idea what I just read. Class balance. Okay, awesome. So general adjustments. I might not really delve too deep into these, but I'm going to try to pick out some of the highlights for the class balances, because I know that you want to listen to it. But for class balances, the general adjustment is this. Haste can speed up mana restoration at present version. So that's how the present version works. The higher your haste, the higher your mana restoration is. But now 1% of mana restore will be sped up by 1% haste. I don't know if that's going to be an improvement or a deterrent, but they're basically changing the way at which you recover mana. So I don't know. I don't know how that's really going to play out with everybody's characters. But that might mean that haste is going to be more of a valuable stat. The damage boost provided by all healing classes is unified as the effect of Rising Spirit. Maybe that's a new buff. I don't know what that means. But second thing, now that was the general adjustment. Now time for the talent adjustment. So force release, the duration is increased from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. So if you don't currently have a lot of investment into force release, now it's going to be just even easier to proc, and force release is something that increases your damage by a tremendous amount. So definitely a great improvement. Careful aim, after adjustment, when you land a critical strike, you gain, and it's a certain modifier of damage bonus for 7 seconds, and now this effect can only trigger once every 8 seconds. So it looks like it's kind of a buff on careful aim. Counter strike, or a nerf on careful aim. Counter strike duration is increased from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. That's good. For desperate strike, the negative effect is reduced by 1% per level, and the damage taken is increased to 10% at level 1 to 6% at level 6. Okay, so basically desperate strike, it gives you an ability that increases your damage output but increases your damage received, your damage taken. Now the negative effect is going to be reduced by 1% per level. So if you're taking increased damage while you're using desperate strike, now the higher you get your desperate strike, the higher your offensive ability or your damage dealt will be, but also the damage received will be reduced. So now is, as you know, when you're doing Overlord dungeons and you're taking too much damage, people would say you need to take off your desperate strike because it's hurting you. You're taking way too much damage. And now the higher you get your desperate strike, the less damage you'll be taking when you're still using it. And so getting desperate strike to 5 is going to be more important than ever now. More, the damage will remain the same, but the damage taken will be reduced. Well trained, negative effect is reduced by 1 second per level. The effect will be lost when get hurt within 7 seconds at level 1 and 3 seconds at level 5. Okay, I'll just let that stand. Now the new talent of Combat Master. So it's going to be Combat Master, Iron Guard, and Strategist. For Combat Master, Bloodlust is a new talent, so it increases 0.3 physical damage per level. So that's for your melee classes. Witchcraft, which is the same thing as Bloodlust, but it's for casters, so 0.3% magic damage per level. So that's going to definitely be a go-to for casters. Ignite is another one. Your attacks have a chance to ignite the target, dealing level times 600% of your attack in damage over 10 seconds. This effect can only trigger once every 30 seconds. So that's going to also be good. It gives everybody pretty much a damage over time ability. Cleave is going to be all direct attacks have a 6% chance to trigger Cleave, causing 50% of damage of this attack to up to 10 enemies within 4 meters. So it's just an AoE ability. If you spec into Cleave, you're going to be able to do a lot more damage to everybody, and that looks like it's for every class, so everyone can be AoE heavy now. Opportunity attack is another one. It says your direct attacks have a 12.5% to a 37.5% chance to deal an additional 25% damage based on the remaining health of the target. So this effect appears more often on targets with low health. I guess that's just when you catch your opponent slipping, you're going to do some more damage to them. And we'll see kind of how these stack up to see which one is going to be the best to spec into as it is released. But so that was for Combat Master. Now for Iron Guard, for you tanks out there. Hardened Skin, it reduces your physical damage taken per level. Or Rune Armor is another one, and that's the same thing as Hardened Skin, but just for magic damage taken. Unbending is going to be a modifier of physical damage taken does not affect immediately. However, it is converted into continuous damage, which will continue to take effect for the next 10 seconds. So basically, Unbending is, instead of taking a hard chunk from an enemy, like let's say I'm a Frost Whisper and I cast an Ice Spike and it does like 800,000 damage. Now it's going to bend it so that you'll still take all of that damage, but instead of taking it all at once, you'll take it over time, which is very helpful if you're having trouble with like spell blades or Frost Whispers in PvP and you're just getting one shot by them. Now you can kind of take that damage over time instead of all at once, which is pretty broken. So it looks like if you're having trouble dealing with those classes, you can just spec into Unbending, if I interpreted that correctly. Now Merciless is another one. It increases your damage by a certain modifier after being attacked. This effect lasts 12 seconds and stacks up to 6 times, and it can only trigger once every 1 second. Wow, okay. So Merciless under the Iron Guard is going to increase your damage done. That might be good for DPS classes, even, you know, during boss fights. Forbidden Spell, your awakening ability increases your armor and resistance by 50% for a certain modifier. That's going to be sick nasty for battle mages, because their awakening already, or their ultimate ability. Wait, awakening ability? I don't know what I'm reading. Basically, it'll more survivability. Now for Strategist, we have Almighty. So strength, dexterity, vitality, and intellect will be increased by 0.3% per level. That's going to be vital. Race against time. So cooldowns will be reduced by 0.4% per level. Enthusiasm is when you're above 90% health, your healing effectiveness is increased by a modifier. Taking advantage is applying crowd control effects on any enemy target increases your damage done by a modifier for 6 seconds. This effect may appear only once every 12 seconds. And then finally, Freedom. Your active movement abilities dispel movement impairing effects on you, making you immune to these effects and increasing your armor and resistance by 20% for a certain modifier. Now this is interesting because as a Frost Whisperer, as a DPS class in general, I want pretty much all of those. You're gonna have to pick between which ones you want to choose, and that is it's interesting because this is really gonna open up, like, these, just adding these talents is really going to open up for people to make different builds and experiment in different scenarios. So you'll want to use certain builds for certain scenarios and other builds for other scenarios. Currently, with where we're at in the game now, it's not really that important to have a huge mix. Like maybe one ability or two abilities off is, you know, for different situations is optimal, but with this, it's really going to open up and everyone is going to be able to make their own creative builds and try to min-max damage. And it's just going to be, I think that's a really great improvement. A lot more room for theory crafting there. So adjustment of gear. Tier 2 of Weapon Master. So with 2 sets, the damage of Focus Assault is increased by 10%, and also the crit rate is increased by 10%. The Tier 2 of Lightbringer. With 2 sets, whenever Searing Light deals damage, you get 1%. Okay, so basically just small adjustments to the Weapon Master and the Lightbringer's Tier 2 set. But now we're getting into specific class changes. This is something that I'm not going to really delve on too much. I'll just briefly overview them and try to make a quick synopsis of what we're looking at. I think that would be the most helpful thing. But for the Weapon Master, basically, it says power attack cooldown has a bonus by haste. So that's going to be good. For Archons, they get a few different buffs. The healing has been increased. Take the lead, Rallying Strike does increased damage. So it looks like Archons are getting a buff. Spellblades, the passive ability, so it increases by 12% PvE power. Excuse me. Same thing for Shadow Dancer, increased by 12% PvE power. So in short, really for PvE, the Blade Masters were the best of the rogues, and there'd be no reason to go Spellblade or Shadow Dancer unless you're doing PvP. Spellblade for small scale and Shadow Dancer for large scale PvP. So now what they've done is for the Spellblade and the Shadow Dancer, they've buffed them by 12% PvE power. So now you're not just locked into playing a Blade Master for PvE content. You can also play Spellblade and Shadow Dancer equally. For Chaos Warlocks, Fell Flame, the interval of damage over time and generate Chaos Shards is reduced from 2 seconds to 1 second, and the length is 6.5 seconds. So Chaos Warlocks are getting a buff. Exarchs, it says they get 3 things. Holy Hammer is changed to Rising Spirit, which is that new buff that we were looking at. So basically for Exarchs, it increases 10% damage bonus, 10% critical rate, 10% haste, and 30% critical damage for 18 seconds. So it looks like Exarchs are getting a huge buff. And just kind of briefly making my way through this, it looks like Exarchs and Saints are both getting that thing called Rising Spirit, which increases, again, their damage output by 10%, their crit rate by 10%, and this is a party buff. So when they use these abilities like Prayer of Healing and Holy Hammer, it adds Rising Spirit to your party. And so in short, the Saints and the Exarchs are going to be top tier healers. This is just my brief synopsis here, because it looks like they're getting an entirely new buff. And I don't know if like the Lightbringer is also getting that. Holy Prism, team damage boost has changed to, yeah, Lightbringer's getting the same thing. Saint and Lightbringer. Okay, so it looks like the healers, including the Lightbringer, are now getting this new thing called the Rising Spirit party buff, which again increases your damage by 10%, your crit chance or your crit rate by 10%, gives you 10% haste and 30% crit damage for 30 seconds. That's the Lightbringer. The other ones have it for, what is it, the Saint and the Exarch. Exarch gets it for 18 seconds, the Saint gets it for 12 seconds. I don't know why they would change that. Maybe it's because the cooldown of Holy Hammer, Prayer of Healing, and Holy Prism. But it looks like in general, those healers are getting a huge party buff, which is very good. And just making my way down here, Templar, a Shield of Retribution, cooldown has a bonus by haste. Looks like they're just increasing cooldowns. They're increasing buff durations for the Templar. And it looks like they're going to get, yeah, so, okay, so Templars are getting a pretty big buff. The Inquisitor, Thunder Smite, cooldown has a bonus by haste. So Inquisitor is getting a bit of a buff. And looking at the bards here, Song of Heroes, team damage boost is changed to Rising Spirit again. So it's the same thing, Rising Spirit, but it's only effective for 6 seconds. So hopefully Song of Heroes can be cast pretty frequently. Marksmen. You marksmen out there. Barrage. The chance of triggering sharpshooting is increased, which is good. Sniper. Aim shots damage toward target with lower than 20% HP is increased. So if you're a marksman, now when your targets are below 20%, you get way more damage from your aim shot, which is essentially like an execute. So marksmen are just getting a huge buff. Demon Hunters, aka those of you that have and enjoy carpal tunnel syndrome, there's no end to that thing. You're just constantly tapping on the screen. It's very painful. If you play Demon Hunter, I'm sorry. But Grenade fixes the bug that the damage over time didn't have a bonus by crit. Oh, okay, that's kind of upsetting. After adjustment, dealing 5 damage over time in 15 seconds is changed to 1 direct damage. I don't really know how to interpret that, but Demon Hunters are getting a buff. Now here for general adjustment of warriors. Okay, excuse me. Shield Bash is a cooldown bonus by haste. Shield Barrier. You get a new epic inscription, which gives you a huge buff for your shield barrier if you play warriors in general. The Gladiator. People have said that gladiators were getting a good buff that would make them viable. I hope that's the case. Shield Spike, add extra iron strike damage. The formula is 6%, and that's a certain modifier, so I guess it'll be increased by 6% per mastery level. That's 6% times 0.6 times your mastery level. So maybe gladiators will be viable now. Who knows? For the Berserker, Berserking Harvest, the action time will become shorter when your haste is higher. So that's good. Okay. Crystal Shaper. Everyone has been saying that Crystal Shaper and Arcane Scholar, well, more specifically the Crystal Shaper, is the highest DPS in 3.0. I'll be covering that ASAP when it drops, but this is why here. So Crystal Energy, okay? Pay attention. The formula of magic missiles bonus is increased from 6% times your mastery to 12% times 1.2% of your mastery. So basically, the damage from your magic missiles is essentially doubled with a little bit more. The formula of your Arcane Blast, which is your main damage ability, is increased from 12% plus 6% times your tier level to 18% plus 9% times your tier level. So Crystal Shapers get a massive buff, and I'm kind of low key. I'm looking forward to swapping to a Crystal Shaper. I think I might go to Crystal Shaper. That's just me being transparent with you. The Vampire Shadow Men. It adds a new epic inscription called Shadow Purification, which can remove the negative state of the subject but increase mana cost per inscription level. So when you're at level 10, the mana cost will be increased by 50%. So looks like Shadow Men is going to be really good. It'll reduce effects, like negative effects of the person you're healing or whoever you're using, but your mana cost will go way up, so use it at your own risk. Siphon Soul, team damage boost is changed to Rising Spirit. Again, all these healers are getting these amazing buffs. Rising Spirit. I really want to look into these healers, but that looks very good. And finally, we have the Frostfire Wizard. Looks like the other wizards were left out. But Frozen Flame is going to be given a new epic inscription, which is good. Frost Blast. Force of Ice will not be consumed when casting. Fiery Haste removes extra burning celebrity. celerity. I hope I read that right. Fix and adjust the bug that it cannot deal. Slowing effect. That was a bad bug. Power of Winter, remove extra force of ice. Adjust the critical rate of Frost Blast when tier up, and crit rate will be increased by 5% in each tier up. So essentially, Frostfire Wizards are getting a buff, but from the sound of that, it doesn't sound like it's going to be overly important, and people still will probably default to what is it, to the Frost Whisperer or the Crystal Shaper if you're going to be a caster in general. But then it says World of Kings Operation Team December 23rd, 2019. That's today. So there you have it, a brief overview. I know I kind of skipped through and made my way through that, but essentially we're getting new dungeons, new level cap, new content, new buffs, and new classes, new races, and this is what we can expect from a patch update going from 2.0 to 3.0, and I'm excited for this. I was kind of teetering on the edge of being bored with this game, but I think that this came out at a perfect time, and especially the day after Christmas. Some of us will have some time to enjoy playing the game, before we have to go back to work and school and other things of that nature. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Of course, I will be covering the content when it drops, in as much as I'm able to. Of course, the holidays are busy, and I'll do my best to put content out, but I'm really excited for the 3.0 update, and if you have any questions or comments or concerns, just drop it down in the comment section down below. Thank you for your time, and until next time, my friends, enjoy your day.